The Canadian Bitcoiners podcast is just two guys and maybe a guest or two discussing Bitcoin, Bitcoin equities, and the related macroeconomic space. It's not meant to be financial advice, so please, if you're doing any investing after listening to our program, do your own research, do your own due diligence, and understand that any money you invest can be lost. The show is meant for entertainment purposes only, and we hope you enjoy the program.
Friends and enemies, welcome back to the CBP, Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, number 168. We got a lot to talk about tonight. My name is Joey, as always, with me, my friend and co-host Len. Buddy, what's going on over there? How the heck are you?
It's going well, Joey. It's going well. Busy time. Summer's finally here. The weather is finally getting nice and warm. Didn't reach the peaks that they were saying today. I don't want to get into this though.
How red was your local map? Your local forecasting map? I
got a tan just looking at it.
I was cooking my drumsticks on there earlier.
But you know what? This funny thing, I was telling Daniela this. Right here where I am in Oakville, we haven't hit 30 Celsius in 11 months.
Wow.
Things are changing. Things are changing.
The show has two sponsors before we go any further. Easy DNS is sponsor number one. What can I say, man? You know, if you want to buy a domain, Mark will help you. You want to port a domain over to a quality service that will help you maintain, operate, and build on that domain. Mark will help you with that too. Whatever you need, man. Virtual private server stuff. We talk about it every week. Bitcoin is part of the equation over there. Not only does Mark take Bitcoin for the services that he offers, he has a Bitcoin treasury strategy. If you haven't seen his talk from the Canadian Bitcoin conference this year, you should go look. An asymmetric bet, he said, for small businesses. It just makes a lot of sense for businesses to be taking those bets. So he does that. And anyway, whatever you want to do, BTC Pay Server, I don't know. What else can you do over there, Len? Like, we run a website where we just like post text a lot of the time, and it works great for us. But if you want to do something more complicated, he can help you with that too. I have seen the back end that's available on EasyDNS, and there's a lot of stuff there that we are not taking advantage of, but you can, listener.
Yeah, like migrating your emails. So if you already have
emails, emails, PGP and GPG, email stuff.
Sign up for a DNS, for domain name. There's a lot of different options.
The virtual private server stuff is the stuff that I think a lot of you guys are using or talking about. BTC Pay Server, Nostr Relay, Bitcoin nodes, all that stuff. You can do it all there. CBP Media is the code, or just tell them we sent you 50% off. You don't get 50% off anything anymore. Why would you not just go there and buy a domain? Start hoarding domains. Domains are second best. We say that all the time. That is the second best asset.
Okay, let's talk about Bull Bitcoin because they're our second sponsor. I have no idea what the price of Bitcoin is. I'm sure I'm going to buy
66. Yeah.
There you go. So it's a good time to buy, good time to sell. I'm on a constant buying spree. I never sell, just the way I am. But you know what? You could do that. You could buy, you could sell on chain. You could do that with Lightning. So a lot of different options are available to you through Bull Bitcoin. But other good things you could do, because you have your Bitcoin, you probably have been buying it for a long time, sitting on it. The price has gone up significantly. You want to start spending it? You can. You could buy gift cards through Bull Bitcoin. You could go to, say, Home Depot. You could go to Starbucks, whatever. You have different options. So you can start spending your Bitcoin in the real world, kind of indirectly, but you're using Bull Bitcoin to facilitate these buys. Also, you could pay your bills if you have, say, a mortgage payment, car payment, electrical payments, whatever the heck you have to pay. You could use your Bitcoin to pay for that. So again, if you've been sitting on a stack and have been accumulating for a long time, and that's been growing in value, well, the opportunity is there to start spending this, and you could pay your bills with Bull Bitcoin. If you already haven't done so, open up an account. If you do that, use our promo code below, and you provide the necessary information. $21 will be added to your account, no questions asked, and you're good to go. You can start buying some Bitcoin from a very cool exchange.
There's no better platform. There's no better team, and there's no more committed group to Bitcoin than the guys at Bull. I promise you that. So use them like we do. Man, Len, housekeeping here up first. You did an interview last week with Mr. Captain Arnome. What a show. That guy shat on us and the podcasting space for probably the first half an hour. You sat there silently, not defending our honor. There's good and bad.
I've done what I could. It's not. No. He doesn't like certain things. He doesn't like influencers type, and I don't want to speak for him. Obviously, you can listen to the show, but I'm happy that I was able to talk to him and bring him on the show because he brings a different type of viewpoint as a Bitcoiner. He's been in the Bitcoin space for a long time, much longer than you and I have, Joey, and we've been in it since 2017. So he's seen a lot of garbage come and go. But he also, on the political spectrum, he's sitting on the left side. So you don't tend to have this as a Bitcoiner, especially somebody that's been in the Bitcoin space for a very long time. So I was very thankful to have him come on the show. He wants to come back again so we could chat some more because, you know what, I'll be happy to chat with him. But one thing, he wanted to talk to you as well, Joey. Maybe we could have you come on as well and then have a chat with him.
Yeah, I'd love
because
to.
You know what, he's
he's speaking. I felt like a couple of times there he was speaking directly to me. You know, not on purpose, but you know, he's sort of disagreeing with a lot of things that I've said on the program. And I think a lot of people share some of those views, and I think a lot of people share his views too. I did send him a message on Discord. So if you're listening, Mr. Gnome, although I don't agree with everything he said, it takes a lot of balls to say that stuff on a show. And you know, Len and I have had guests that the other person disagreed on over the years, and we try and just do the same thing all the time. Conviction, you know, square dealer, and even if I disagree, I want to hear your point of view. Actually, tomorrow, to continue the housekeeping here, SB is going to come on at 7. We're going to do a Tuesday show. He's got a lot to say. Him and I talk every day about miners and strategy and some of this, you know, Bitcoin versus TradFi stuff. We agree on a lot, but we disagree on a lot of things too. So that's going to be a really good episode. We'll talk coin, we'll talk MSTR, and we'll talk about a lot of this sort of traditional equity link to Bitcoin. That's going to be a heater. I promise you that. And next week we have, am I doing next week too, or am I off next week?
No, I'm taking next week. I think it's the Wilson mining.
Yes. You're right.
So they're coming
that should
on
be good.
Yeah. Anytime, you know, we have somebody that's going to be talking about mining, I'll be happy to chat with them. It's a good discussion. It's prevalent, especially nowadays, what's going on with
big time.
the United States, and that's going to be a topic of discussion. But yeah, I look forward to this, and that'll be fun. So tomorrow, it's going to be you talking about MSTR and a few other things. And next week, we'll be talking about mining. So yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm just going to pull up the calendar here for the show. We can talk about what we have coming up on the interview side. So, July 3rd. I don't want to say who that is yet because I don't know 100% whether we're going to do it or not.
Is that a mining thing again?
No, it's not. But I see an email from the person who we're.
Oh, yes, I know what you mean.
And then the other one we booked is Michael Geist. Michael Geist will be on the show on the 23rd of July. I will release a Madex show probably the week of the 17th, if I had to guess. And yeah, so there you go. We have a lot of stuff coming up. Summer's usually slow, but I think it's going to be about the same speed as the rest of the year this time.
It's always pedal to the metal here.
Yeah, I know. Can't slow down. You want to do some boosts? What do we got?
Yeah, okay. We'll start off with Wartime sent over 333 sats. And he writes in with the Mr. R. Gnome rip we had. He said, stop listening at they need to be deplatformed. And also, I'm a lefty. Yeah, we could smell it oozing out of him from the beginning. It's too bad you didn't stick around to the end because it was, at least I thought, a good rip. And yeah.
I listened to the whole thing. I thought it was good. I mean, but I do understand. I mean, the thing is, people in Bitcoin, and I think people more generally now, you know, if you look around the world, have a lot of PTSD when it comes to liberal politics. And Mr. R. Gnome, I don't think he's not quite as left-leaning as, you know, some prominent left-leaning figures, let's say. He's a rational guy. And I think a lot of the stuff, like I said, even if I disagree, you know, I appreciate that he's at least given it some thought and has a position that he didn't just come up with, you know, in the last hour. So yeah, listen to it. Give it a shot. You're going to enjoy the show.
Mo BTC Dick, 500 sats. He says, chiming to say I'm officially stored on a cold card queue via air gapped. He said the relief is even greater than I expected. I've never used the queue. If it's
because I keep forgetting to order it. That's why I keep not ordering it.
It's waiting to be ordered on our side. But either way, if it's the same thing in terms of the process as the cold card, which I expect it is, but I can't verify that. If anybody needs help with the queue, I'll be happy to provide them what knowledge I have with respect to the cold card, you know, the Mark IV. So again, good on you, MobiTC Dick, for doing this, doing the air gap. That's the proper way to store Bitcoin, in my humble opinion, our humble opinion. And so if anybody needs help with this, feel free, reach out to me. I'll be happy to give you a one-on-one. I'm not charging anything. It's just free, but we'll just get people on the right track and pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, love that. What else we got?
Some user writes in with an unknown name, 1,000 sats. He says, "Thank you for this pure signal." He says, "Greed and hype are the enemies of freedom and Bitcoin." That's with respect to the Mr. Arnome rip. Sir Snacks a lot, 1,316 sats. He says, "A boost towards the CBP podcast tour to compete with Tucker Carlson." Man, we need a lot more sats than that.
You'd have to throw a few zeros on that, yeah.
Yeah. But even if you did, I probably wouldn't do it. So don't do it. Please don't. Save it for yourself.
Which, like, a relatively unknown cough syrup can we get to sponsor the second half of the podcast? We got to figure that out.
With like a fledgling 30 followers on Twitter.
Something. Either we got to go either with the relatively unknown street side pharmaceutical or some kind of very well-known ammunition dealer or something like that. That's what all the right-wing podcasts are sponsored by. Like some off the beaten path medicinal treatment or ammunition. It's always one of those two things. Actually, Gold Bars is another one. I hear Gold Bars a lot when I listen to right-leaning podcasts. Yeah. Not too much variety.
Shield Gold Bars.
No, we can't.
I don't believe in it. Anyways, M Flux. The last one, this is the last boost. So M Flux, 2,169 sats.
Great numbers here. We got the 316 in the one before, and now the 2169 in this one. Love it.
He writes in, "What is it about Reddit users that make them so arrogantly confident in their opinions? The walls must be very smooth inside the Reddit echo chamber."
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Mr. Arnome is cut from the same jib as most Reddit users. I mean, I don't go to our politics anymore, but I might during the election. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun there.
That's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun during the election. I don't know. Reddit users, I think Reddit is a shithole, honestly. I never go there. I go to the few subreddits niche that I won't even mention on the air. But probably you guys can guess what some of them are. And I don't really go any other places. I also don't even go to the Bitcoin stuff on Reddit anymore because I just don't think it's good signal. I'm in a couple of Telegram chats, a couple of Signal chats. That's where I get most of my stuff. I'm in the Bitcoin Discord. But I don't look at it that often, although I should, right? What is that live or voice chat thing they do? Coffee and Bitcoin or something like that you were telling me about?
Beers and Bitcoin. This is on the Bitcoin Discord channel. If you want to see and have some high signal discussion about Bitcoin, I highly suggest check it out. Discord, Bitcoin, and periodically they have these beers and Bitcoin. It's not on a schedule. It's just as the topic comes up, let's have it, let's do it, and we just chat away.
Right.
And it's really totally recommended for everybody out there that wants to just go dive deep in this rabbit hole. That's a great place to go down.
Yeah, I might check it out. I do want to talk to a couple of those guys. I mean, it's always good to have a conversation if you disagree with somebody, and as long as it's civil, it can be productive. So, yeah. Anyway, that's good.
It is always civil. I've always found over there, as long as you're not shilling trash, shit coins or whatever, as long as you stick toward on the message, you're accepted. You're accepted. Yep. You'll be able to talk it. You may disagree on something, but people disagree. That's fine. And I would totally recommend it. Next time it's on, I'll send you the link, show you, and you can join in if you want.
Sure. Benny in the chat saying it gets wild. Now I really got to listen in.
I don't say it gets wild. It gets in depth.
Okay.
But yeah, I've seen Benny on there a few times. At least on the as one of the people listening in the audience. I don't think he's been on stage.
We got to start a beers and Bitcoin in the CBP Discord. Although it'll probably be coffee and Bitcoin. I don't drink beers often enough to have a beers and Bitcoin regularly, but coffee and Bitcoin I would do.
I drink coffee maybe once every 2 weeks, so it's
tough for you. That's not a bad schedule. We could do it once every 2 weeks. We have to,
when I have my coffee.
The only time I have left really is Sunday mornings. So you'd have to give up your Sunday morning worship, take a day off from reciting decades of the rosary, and come talk about whatever the latest BIP is.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Anyways,
either.
let's go on. Let's talk about some Bitcoin related stuff. There's some stuff going on.
Sure.
Donald J. Trump is making some waves in the world of Bitcoin this past week. And there's the hat. I love it. Bust it out. And when I'm talking about a wave, it's truly a wave, not a ripple. And this is a pun to you XRP folks. Trump came out this past week to say that Bitcoin mining needs to be looked at more seriously. And he wants the industry to remain, grow, and thrive within the borders of the United States. And with that declaration, we now have Bitcoin mining entering the world of politics. I'm not talking about a developing nation like El Salvador. It's entered the political realm of the United States of America. And this is coming from a U.S. presidential candidate, no less. And through all accounts that I could see, he's got probably a greater than 50% chance of winning the next election. So this is interesting. So I did not have this on my bingo card in 2024. And I'm not ashamed to admit I didn't have it. So, but I'll leave crow there. But let's dive deeper into this, because Trump does mention that Bitcoin mining is our last chance or last line of defense against a CBDC. I tried thinking about this long and hard. I'm not sure what the connection is between the two. You could argue that, Bitcoin does not have any measurable way to defend against a CBDC. That's the way I would argue. Maybe theoretically, for instance, you could have a CBDC with a Bitcoin-backed dollar. So there's a universe where you have both of these things that are adopted and used in tandem. So it goes back to, how does this protect against a CBDC? I'm talking about Bitcoin. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something in the whole picture. I'm sitting here in a basement, so clearly I'm not seeing everything. But yeah, there's possibility I missed something. I'd love to know what I missed. But either way, let's talk about the more important thing of this, and the main part of the message, which is the Bitcoin mining stuff. And I'd love to know what part the federal government can play with pushing a Bitcoin narrative, either pushing it or maybe hindering its adoption. So I went down deep in this. So I think there's two extreme scenarios I came up with. So one would be the federal government simply bans its citizens from holding or transacting Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. They could impose also a ban on Bitcoin mining. So that's one end of the spectrum. And the exact opposite end, you could have the government say that they consider Bitcoin as a hybrid currency and commodity, right? And you can see them, they allow their markets to get exposure in ETFs, also allow their citizens to use that as a medium of exchange without being subjected to capital gains taxation. So that's the other ends of the spectrum. So those are the two extremes. I can see how the US federal government can react with Bitcoin. So the question remains here, where does this whole Trump announcement fall within that spectrum? There's an argument that could be made that it's closer to where it's accepting Bitcoin and having it, no taxable gains applicable to it. So that could be, maybe a step in that direction. Yeah. But it does raise some questions about the concentration of Bitcoin mining, especially in one jurisdiction. We've talked about this before on this channel a lot of times. We're both in agreement, I believe. I don't want to put yours in your mouth, but I think we're both in agreement that we would like to see this industry spread throughout the globe.
Yeah.
But there's a huge but here. Maybe this Trump announcement gives some sort of seal of approval for Bitcoin mining on a global scale. And maybe this helps usher in a new golden age of Bitcoin mining where it could be done more broadly, where people want to keep up with the Joneses. Well, in this case, it's the United States. So another thing about this announcement that's interesting is it could be the planting of the Bitcoin flag on the right side of the political spectrum, because now you have Donald Trump talking about this. And, every time something is done like this, the Democrats demonize whatever he says. And vice versa, too. Whatever the Democrat says, typically Trump says. I'm generalizing here. It's not always the case, but for the most part, there's a lot of truth to that. So with this announcement, does this automatically make Bitcoin mining a thing that the Democrats don't like? Because if you recall, not too long ago, we had the proposal from Biden about the 30% tax, the excise tax on Bitcoin miners.
Excise tax. You probably, listen, I've seen a lot of Americans, you probably also needed some kind of excise tax too, I would say.
But I don't know exactly what happened with this. This didn't pass. It's not yet, but it's, I guess, on the table, right? Like it's still a thought in some people's minds. But even with that, muddying the waters, we now have news that Team Biden, they were attending a Bitcoin roundtable with key congressional officials in DC. Very interesting stuff.
They're working with Coinbase to take donations through Coinbase Commerce too.
Yes.
I gotta, like, these people tried to bury Coinbase 6 months ago.
And now they're in bed with them, accepting donations through their platform as a way to collect money. Seems very interesting, right? Why would they do this? You know, this now, at least from what I'm looking at it, it may be getting to the point. This is Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining may be looked at or reviewed positively by these major candidates, or maybe they're just trying to pander to a group of growing constituents out there that could potentially move the political needle. But as for Trump, let's go back to that. You know, maybe he's opened his eyes to this. I don't know. Maybe not. If you recall, he was selling NFTs to fund his campaign. He's been doing this for the past couple of years, at the very least. And this is also the guy that said some time ago, I'm not a fan of Bitcoin, which is not money, and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activities. He also said, we only have one real currency in the USA, and it is stronger than ever, both dependable and reliable. A lot of water passed under the bridge since then, so he may have opened his eyes to Bitcoin, or, I don't know, again, could just be pandering to a group of people that may push him over the edge in terms of getting elected. But one thing is, Bitcoin is for everybody, and it's also for him if he wants. But as for this news, this is a long-winded way of saying this, Joey. For me, I don't give a fuck. I'm still buying Bitcoin regardless of what Biden or Trump says. So what he says with respect to Bitcoin mining, I don't give a fuck.
I think you should. And I'll tell you why. So let's back up a little bit. When people say, like, you know, what would a Trump presidency mean for Bitcoin? And a friend of the show, David Bailey, talking on his timeline a lot now about Trump's campaign. Clearly, he's the man in their corner, at least one of the people in their corner when it comes to Bitcoin policy and Bitcoin rhetoric. To your point, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think David also wrote the RFK speech a few years ago for the Bitcoin conference, right? That was the word around town.
I have no idea.
I've not confirmed it. You know, he's not confirmed it himself, but that's the word. So, you know, he's talking to the right people. He has the ear of a lot of prominent politicians. That's good. I would say that's a good thing. When people say, you know, what would a Trump presidency do for Bitcoin? To go back to where we started here. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a burp coming, but it's not coming out.
Do it, man. Just fucking tap your back.
I can't get it out. I can't like get it out. I didn't bring the fizzy water today. It's just regular water. Anyway, so when people ask, they're looking at stuff like, well, he's talking about self-custody in rallies. He's talking about getting rid of the anti-crypto army from Liz Warren. He's talking about making sure there's no CBDCs. Now he's talking about Bitcoin mining and all Bitcoin being American or being made in America, you know, whatever that means. I don't think he really knows, but that's okay. Those things are good for Bitcoin for sure. There's not been a similar stance or a similarly clear statement from the other party. There's no doubt about this. Okay. The thing I would say to people is you want a Republican president because it immediately, you know, takes the wheels off Liz Warren and her pals as far as getting, you know, in the way of banks custodying crypto, for example, SAB 21 or whatever that bill is. It immediately neuters guys like Gensler, probably, you know, removes him from his post and ensures that he doesn't become the Secretary of the Treasury, which is the word around town. That's the job he wants. When you can do that and get rid of two what have become major roadblocks, I think, to competent and fair Bitcoin policy in the United States, that's huge. You only get that with the Trump presidency. You don't necessarily get it with an RFK presidency. You certainly don't get it with another Biden presidency or, you know, whatever Democrat candidate runs. So that's good. As far as like, should you care? Yeah, I think you should care. There's a quote that I don't remember now that basically is, you know, the gist of it is if you ignore politics, you know, if all good people ignore politics, then those good people wind up being ruled by morons. And so ignoring politics is sometimes to your detriment. Now, I've been vocal over the last few years about engaging with politicians who seem not to be interested in playing fair with you. I think that holds true. But what I see here is a guy who is a square dealer. I think Trump is a square dealer. Now, you may like him or not like him. I personally think the guy's pretty funny and he's a pretty good politician. So fine. He's engaging with you on your level. He's talking with not only David Bailey and some others, but also then the miners were just there too, talking with his campaign. Iris Energy, among others, talking to Trump and his people, presumably about energy policy and mining policy and the importance of Bitcoin. I don't see, like we've had this view for a long time outside of politics, that this thing is unavoidable, and the countries that embrace it and try and get behind it will benefit so greatly from doing so and being one of the earliest adopters as far as nation states. The US has been reluctant, to say the least. It's probably too soft a term. And now it seems like the candidates are warming up to it. Now, to your other question about why are they warming up to it, I think there's two reasons. One, which is something we talked about a while ago and other people have said since and probably before as well. You're not going to win anyone over by telling them that you are anti-crypto. No one who doesn't have crypto cares enough to vote on those lines. But you will lose people by saying you're anti-crypto. People who have crypto have enough of it to vote along those lines. And so the presidential candidates in both parties are understanding that this is important. The second reason they're doing this, and I think this is maybe a 2A and 2B, is there's a lot of capital there. You're seeing guys my age, and like I'm not a big fish by any stretch, but like I have way more money to give to a political party and way more influence in my friend group than someone who's not a Bitcoiner. I'll tell you that. And, I think you're probably the same in your friend group. You have a little bit more weight to throw around. Why? It's not necessarily even just a matter of capital. It's a matter that you've been right. And you've probably been right not only about Bitcoin, but about a lot of other stuff too. And whether the Democrats admit that, I'm sure there are some internal polling data somewhere that indicates that, yeah, these people who are Bitcoiners have an sort of uneven level of sway in their friend group. It goes to politics, it goes to relationships, it goes to all these other, different social outcomes. And voting is one of them. I think that's 1A. 1B is that, Len, there's just tons of us now. Coinbase says that something like 50 million Americans have an account. Now, do all those people care that much? Or they want issue voters? I don't know. But man, it seems to me like Bitcoin, and like this is sort of a sentiment check. We're consolidating here at 65 or 66,000, and you're just a little below all-time highs. The presidential candidates are talking about it. The dollar continues to weaken. The Eurozone is under attack. Like to me, all this stuff leans bullish anyway. And still the average person is not really thinking about Bitcoin, but they're going to start, if they're not, thinking about it already, they're going to start pretty soon, because the price is going to continue to rise and they're going to watch sort of other assets underperform Bitcoin, as they always do. And it'll become, not only an election issue, but an issue that people talk about just as like part of their broader set of interests. It's going to be part of the conversation you have with your neighbors, part of the conversation you have with your mechanic, part of the conversation you have at your Father's Day dinner. We talked about Bitcoin yesterday. My dad was over for Father's Day. We talked about it. I think it's getting bigger and bigger, and the sphere of influence that's being absorbed by Bitcoin and Bitcoiners is growing. And you can't ignore that. You really ignore that at your own peril, right? You don't want to turn off people who have a disproportionate amount of influence in their friend groups. And certainly, Len, the one thing that both parties are looking for are young people who are typically less than enthusiastic as far as voter turnout and apathetic when it comes to which candidate they support. These people don't answer surveys. They don't take phone calls about their preferred candidates. They're hard to reach unless you like Bitcoin. You can get 50 million more people to listen to the rest of your platform if you'll meet them on the Bitcoin side. So I expect this to continue. I'm really excited about this. I don't know, and I see people in the chat. I'm not going to mention some of these things that are in the chat, but like I can see, yeah, is Trump the perfect candidate? No, of course not. Okay. Everyone knows that there is no perfect candidate. But to say that we have to be voting against Trump or ignoring this election when clearly one party is pro Bitcoin and pro crypto and the other party is anti Bitcoin and anti crypto. That's a dumb take. Don't be stupid. Okay. Don't be tribal to the point where you're not voting for the guy who is clearly going to at least entertain supporting you once he's in the White House, or at least has the smarts to pretend he's going to entertain it. The other party doesn't care at all. I think you're missing, an opportunity. And also, Len, like the one thing I think that we've had trouble with over the years, and I know I've had trouble with this, I'm sure you have too. And we run a show, like people listen to what we have to say every week. I can't get my brother to listen to me about Bitcoin. I can't get some of my friends to listen to me about Bitcoin. But once it becomes part of a political conversation, you rustle people's jimmies that way. And whether they're engaged because they're, looking for an argument online, or they're engaged because they want to know more about Bitcoin, you can lead them to the Bitcoin trough now in a way that was maybe a little bit more difficult a year ago. So I think this is all good for me. Am I going to buy more Bitcoin because Trump is talking about it? No. I mean, I'm buying no matter what. I think the outcome is sort of preordained at this point for the big orange. But, I think a lot of
you don't give a fuck.
I do care. I know I do care.
Because it's not changing anything for you. Your buying habits aren't changing.
It doesn't change my buying habits, but it does change the way I engage with people. It does change the way I engage with people.
The most important thing that you have is your buying habits.
For me,
sure. That is a measure.
But I don't think it's fair to say nothing is changing. I don't think it's fair to say that it's not doing anything for people.
Proof is in the pudding. If you're not buying any more, any less, given this announcement, and nothing has changed, you don't give a fuck.
Well,
maybe you can talk to more people, but the thing that really matters is your time, effort, and energy. Nothing encompassed in the money that you have. But
nothing would change the level at which I buy. Like I'm fully deploying every chance I get.
Give a fuck, and I'm with you on that, man.
Yeah. So it's not like I don't care. It's just that it doesn't matter. Like
exactly,
I can do.
That's exactly it.
But not caring and it not mattering are different things, right?
The mattering we'll find out over time. That depending on, because number one, accelerate by accelerate, right? So we should always go with the acceleration. Anyways, but the second thing is the group of people that he was talking to, Bitcoin miners.
Yeah.
Isn't there some sort of history here? The 2017 New York agreement. We had even the Taproot rollout where they did speedy trial.
Man.
So my hopes aren't high that their best interest is they're not Bitcoiners. They're fiat maximalists. They're there to make $1. They're not there to push the Bitcoin agenda or to push Bitcoin. They're there to mine Bitcoin with the energy that they have, and with that get money. That's it. That's what a Bitcoin mine, especially publicly traded ones. There's the ones that are doing it. There are probably some non-publicly traded ones that have the Bitcoiners' thoughts and minds.
Yeah.
But the publicly traded ones, nah. And that's what we're talking about here, the publicly traded ones. And we'll see what, historically, we've had examples that they're not aligned with us. They're a very important part of the triangle here.
Yeah.
You have the developers, Bitcoin developers, you have miners, and you have node runners. So of that triangle, the miners are a very important part of the whole system, but they're not the only thing. And sometimes their interests aren't aligned with everybody else. Thankfully, we have node runners out there to keep things in check.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's a good conversation there. Bitcoin is political now, I think to your point about the bingo card, this is way earlier than either of us thought. And we're as bullish as it comes, right? So
I'm willing to admit, I didn't expect this, but we have lots more to talk about.
Sure.
Okay,
should I take my hat off? Are we done with this hat?
Yeah, take it off. We'll talk about MicroStrategy next. Is there going to be buying? Do you have the MicroStrategy shirt or hat on that you could put on, or?
I'm not a big enough shareholder to have one now.
Okay.
I got to talk to Mike. Get Mike to send me one. Mike, if you're out there, buddy, flip me a hat, flip me a shirt. I'm ready.
Because they're buying more Bitcoin, they said, right?
Yeah.
Not sure if he said they had initial announcement saying that they're going to buy $500 million of convertible senior notes that's going to be used to acquire additional Bitcoin and also used for general corporate purposes. I don't think they're going to be buying cold cards under the general corporate purpose category. I'm pretty sure that they don't self-custody their Bitcoin, and the honor of that goes to both Fidelity and Coinbase, if I recall correctly. But it's a topic for another time. But for some reason, they weren't satisfied just with that $500 million initial purchase, or at least that they said they're going to be, because they probably asked every employee to check the pockets of the coats, under the car seat, in between the sofa cushions, because with that they found another $200 million. So it's now $700 million that they're going to go ahead and buy a Bitcoin instead of the initial $500 million. And that happened in a very short period of time. I suspect the feedback from that initial announcement must have been phenomenal to make a change so quickly. And as for people wondering how much Bitcoin this is going to buy, it's likely going to be in a range of around 10,000 to 11,000 BTC. And that's in line with some recent buys, because in March 2024, I think they bought 9K and 12K, if I recall correctly. So it's kind of in that. So they're banking with this purchase and all their other purchases that the price of Bitcoin is going to go way higher than what they're paying interest of this debt. So when I mean way higher, I mean way higher, because there's going to come a point in time that MSTR is going to decide to start selling Bitcoin, because they're not going to be hodlers forever, right? Nobody is. So once they do decide to start selling, even a little bit, I think the market's going to react unkindly, and that could be potentially an epic dump in the price of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Its potential is there. But either way, the CBP approach for all this, we've been buying Bitcoin without debt. So time will tell which is the better mechanism to do it, either the CBP method, no debt, or MSTR using debt. Either way, two different ways of buying Bitcoin and adding it to the balance sheet. Time will tell which is better.
I'm not equipped to discuss the MSTR debt strategy. Our boy SB is. He'll talk about that tomorrow. Here's a question for you, okay? Just because I am interested in hearing your opinion. What matters more to Bitcoin and, sort of the success of Bitcoin and Bitcoiners or whatever? The Trump stuff or the MSTR Bitcoin strategy? That you can go back to the first buy if you want, or whatever buy. Which one is more important?
I would argue that the MSTR one.
You would. I knew you were going to say that, but I disagree. But tell me why.
It's an individual, like a corporation is an individual without voting rights, really. Mm-hmm. But they can't vote for an election. So it's basically an individual that has purchased Bitcoin. And that's what really Bitcoin is. It's buying it, holding it, using it. That's Bitcoin. And so you have a very powerful individual, in this case, a corporation that has a lot of capital behind it, parking a lot of their wealth and also debt and buying up Bitcoin. That is a telling statement. And other companies are doing the same thing. We'll talk about that in a bit. But that is a big statement. That shows that there is faith in it. They want to hold it. And other companies are going to follow suit moving forward. And that's what we want to see.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I agree. I hear what you're saying, though. For sure, there's something special about that, and there has been something special about it. I mean, he gets hype every time. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the MSTR stock price. It's kind of lost some of its beta on the downside. I was saying this to SB today, that when Bitcoin drops like it did today to whatever, 65 or 64, I don't know how low it got, but MSTR was only down like 2 or 3%, which is weird because it's still getting amplified upside, but seems like the downside has really been muted over the last couple of months. So I don't know why that is. Is it because the market is figuring this out and they realize that selling into Bitcoin dips is actually a bad idea? I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I'd be curious to hear. I'm looking forward to hearing what SB says tomorrow on that, because I think it's important that this is changing. And then also, like we talked about before, these other companies that are doing similar, although not quite as large and not quite as debt fueled strategies as far as treasury asset and Bitcoin, they've seen a lot of growth too in their stock price. And to me, the MSTR thing is funny because, man, like neither of us really actually trust Saylor, do we? We talk about this all the time, that he comes up with the digital ID thing, or talks about how Bitcoin is not a medium of exchange and he wants to ossify, even though he doesn't really say it. I don't really trust him. I don't think you really trust him. And yet both of us seem to hold like the MSTR buys in somewhat high regard. It's weird. There's like some kind of incongruence there. And I'm not sure what to really make of it.
I have no problem with what they're doing. If I would have a problem, it would be taking on debt to buy Bitcoin. But I guess that's one way to really stick it to fiat currency.
Yeah.
And the systems in which they could operate within that. But aside from that, for them, I have no problem with them buying Bitcoin. I'd prefer them to self-custody it. That'd be a good way to show initiative and how to properly do it, rather than relying on a third party to hold on to Bitcoin. But I don't know the internals of all this, so it's hard for me to truly criticize exactly what's going on there, but at least I could have a point of view, and that is it. And in terms of what they're going to do with their Bitcoin, that's a totally different topic altogether, though. And I touched upon it. They're buying Bitcoin. Eventually, they're going to have to sell or trade that for some good or service, right? Like they're not going to hold on to this forever. Nobody takes this to their grave, and MSTR is probably not going to do the same. There's going to be a point in time somewhere in the future. It may not be in my lifetime. It may not. I don't know. But I can't see them holding on to this to the absolute end of time. So when did they decide to start parting with their Bitcoin?
Not sure.
And what happens with the market? That's going to be.
Why do they have to part with it? I mean, I don't plan on selling. I plan on either using it as collateral for loans, don't trigger the tax thing, or, some other method. I don't know. We'll see. TGM in the chat. MSTR gave early notice on its 2025 notes, triggering the repayment or conversion of 650 million in notes. That's way over my head, but it sounds like important information.
Well, let's go on. There's still so much to talk about because we can stay on the topic of publicly traded companies that are buying up more corn and Metaplanet. Well, remember I said don't commit this name, don't bother committing this name to memory. I was wrong. Well, they're proving me wrong enough almost on a bi-weekly basis. They announced this past week that they are going to buy, or they have already purchased, another 23 Bitcoin, and that's worth 250 million yen, or about 1.6 million dollars US. So that brings up to their total Bitcoin holdings to around 141, or almost a little bit less than $10 million in total. The stock price jumped at the news, but it's since settled down. So if you look at that, this was last week, it was announced. The price went up significantly, but it kind of settled back. But still, on the week, it's up 7%. So that's still a pretty good gain. If you're a shareholder in some shitty zombie company out there, you got to be pressuring them to buy Bitcoin and pump up the price of the stock, right? Like, imagine if GameStop, for instance, did this. That, like, just based on what's going on in the past week, that would single-handedly elevate the stock market, the GDP, and even the job numbers. After revisions, it would elevate all this shit. It's just a matter of time, though, because we see all this stuff happening. The more companies start doing the exact same thing, announcing that they're buying Bitcoin and adding to their balance sheet. We have several examples now of positive feedback from the market. What's holding them back now? It's just a matter of time.
It's risk of ruin, right? As far as your career basically is all that's left. Man, I don't know. It's so frustrating to watch companies like GameStop. We talk about a lot, right? He just had his earnings call today, and they went down the DEI rabbit hole, and we're maximizing profit. We don't care about the hype. If he had just said, we're going to take 5% of the cash flow and buy Bitcoin, or 5% of the debt that we just issued and buy Bitcoin, the stock would rip 50%.
What if they said they bought $1 million worth of Bitcoin, which translates to what?
Nothing, basically nothing, right? It's
right. Would that still have the same impact?
Bitcoin?
I think it would have a significant impact because
algorithms.
That right away.
Yeah. I mean, the algorithms doing that, right? Yeah. What do you think that you're going to see? I mean, we talked about Cult, Mark Binz's new synthetic meat company. Hold your tomatoes. Do you think there's a chance that we see another company do this before the end of the year?
For sure.
Or we just do you think for sure? I'm not 100%. Yeah, I don't share your enthusiasm. I think it's probably really unlikely, because the other thing about those small caps, Len, is people who run those companies, these sort of serial entrepreneur types, they only get so many swings and misses. And if they are one of these guys who want to buy Bitcoin or add it to the treasury or whatever, and it doesn't hit the way that it did for these other companies, and the company flounders, or they have trouble with cash flow or whatever, they don't get another shot. And so it's really the mega majors that can afford to make these mistakes, whether it's in product development or in HR or whatever, because they just have so much runway and such a comfy sort of moat, right? But these little companies don't have that. So they've been successful so far, but it only takes one of these companies to not be successful for the whole thing to fall apart, including probably the ones who've already done it, Metaplanet and what was the other one? I forget now the name of the
DeFi Technologies.
DeFi, that's the one. Yeah. So
but
I don't know.
We're batting 1,000 right now. It's not like this is just we're sending up some jabroni hitter.
No, you're right.
This isn't Mendoza going up there and just hacking away and it just swinging. Yeah. We're sending Tony Gwynn over there, and he's just hitting time and time again, getting on base, even though he's putting the best pitcher. He still gets on base.
Semler is another one who did it. So you get DeFi, Semler, and Metaplanet, recent memory.
And they've all been, so that I'm trying to say, those zombie companies out there that they have nothing to deliver. They're just a leech. Why wouldn't one of them decide, I'll just I'll sell some shares, right? Like, let's dilute. But, at the same time, it's probably going to fucking pump the price and to look like a god. And it doesn't take much. It just takes one guy or gal that's long in a tooth, probably going to retire in the next little while, and it's not going to do this. This is going to be my legacy, and go from there.
That's maybe where you see it. Yeah, that's maybe where you see it. Who's buying these shares, by the way? How is the stock price of these companies pumping so much? Isn't it just algorithmic buying? They see Bitcoin in a press release and they buy up 1,000 shares at any price, 10,000 shares at any price.
Do you think that's it? I have no clue.
I really do, because Bitcoiners are not buying shares of Semler Scientific. They're not. Bitcoiners are not going to the fucking TSX. How many Canadian Bitcoiners are there? Not many. They're not going to the TSX and buying up shares of DeFi technologies. They're just not. So the money's coming from somewhere. I would guess it's algorithmic trading. That's my.
Yeah, so if it takes advantage of that, why not continue to take advantage of it until that advantage is wiped off the books? So that's why I'm looking at it this year. We have 6 more months. There's going to be one more, at the very least.
One more
publicly traded company. Doesn't have to be United States. Doesn't have to be Canada. It could be anywhere, because Metaplanet is a Japanese company traded on the stock market over there. So it could be something similar. Another company that's maybe in Japan, they're upset with what's going on with the yen. It's lost 40% of its value against the United States dollar in 2 years. And they say, fuck this, I'm done with this. I'm going to just buy something which is not going to erode at the same pace. And they start buying Bitcoin. It's possible. And not just Japanese, could be anywhere else. Like, I don't know, it could be a European company. Who the fuck knows? But either way, let's talk about brains. And this past week, they released a new piece of equipment. And this was unveiled at the Bitcoin event in Prague. And this new piece of equipment is called BMM 100 Mini Miner. The specs are interesting. It's the terahash. It's 1 terahash. The power consumption is 40 watts. So easy math, 40 watts per terahash. So that's not too bad. I mean, it's much more efficient than an S9. Price is $199. And checking it out, checking the specs, the outlet temperature is 40 to 50 Celsius. So yeah, it can be certainly used as a space heater, especially given what the outlet temperature is. If you want one, you're going to have to wait, because they have to go on a pre-order list. They had 100 units that they brought for sale to Prague. All 100 were snatched up on the first day. It's a cool little device. If you take a look at it, there's a screen that gives us some statistics. And they call it a small, silent, and simple plug in anywhere in your house and forget about it, with a sleek design. And it says you can become a pleb miner without worrying about high electricity bills. And it's going to be going up against the BitAxe. So it's going to be a direct competition for one of these small mining that you just plug it in and go from there. It's good to have another option available. And if you are doing some space heating with an S9, consider this is probably more efficient. However, it will take you a long time to earn back. The ROI on this, I think, is like decades. $199 based on, and it only gets worse because more miners get plugged in the network, and efficiency. It gets more difficult to mine Bitcoin and halvings and so forth. But either way, it's a cool thing, and it's more just a lottery ticket than anything else.
Yeah, I have some inside information on this if you want it. A source close to Brains tells me that it actually does up to 1.3 terahash and has the Brains BCB 100 control board in it. So compared to the BitAxe, no firmware in the BitAxe. Brains obviously has the firmware there, less hash rate, and a lot more firepower in this thing. Plus, I really like the way the BitAxe looks. I don't want to talk about the BitAxe unfairly.
The BitAxe is more efficient, though. If you're looking at watts per terahash, it's way more efficient.
Yeah, but I really love the way this Brains miner looks. That black
it does look cool with that little screen on it.
Yeah, it's nice, really nice.
Aesthetically, it's phenomenal.
I think you're going to see one at my house in the next few months. I talked to Gandalf. I wanted them to buy me one, but they weren't. They were already sold out at the vendor booth in Prague.
Yeah.
So too bad. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get one. I really like it. Okay, for people on Twitter, I see David Bailey in the chat there, and anyone on Twitter, I can see your comments. I can't reply to them. So come to YouTube, I guess, even though YouTube fucking sucks. Twitter Spaces is a lot better way to watch the show. But anyway, yeah. Are you thinking about buying a Bidax or you're not, eh? You're done with the mining stuff? Yeah, okay.
No, I only set it up for a friend. That's it. I wouldn't recommend mining because if you do that, it's all reportable, right? So don't if you are gonna get a Bidax, don't plug it in. Just leave it there as a shining piece, right? Because you got to report this. Just
decorative.
Yeah, that's my opinion. Factual advice. Let's talk about Ledger.
Sure.
And Ledger users, I think it's time for you to wake up. If you are still using a Ledger device, this was posted on Reddit by a user by the name of FL Squirtle, Florida Squirtle. I don't know. Either way, FL Squirtle. He shows that a screenshot of the Ledger app on his phone, and with that, the Ledger app is doing something interesting. It's asking for permissions for his location. Very interesting. So 3 questions come to mind initially. Why is the app required to give any sort of location information? I don't know why. Second, why is anybody installing an app, a Ledger app on their phone? And third, why is anybody using a Ledger? Those 3 questions I don't think I'll ever get an answer to, but someone noted that the location info may be needed for certain third-party features that it's built into Ledger Live app. For example, if you're going to buy or sell, say, Bitcoin or do some sort of swaps, the location is needed because of restrictions in certain countries. But come on, man. Like, do yourself a favor. Don't use this trash. We talked at the beginning of the show, air gap your stuff. That's the best way to do it. And if not, well, information is going to be passed on. Why would you want this information to be passed on? This is your information to keep. You could remain private. But if you choose to do so, do it at your own risk.
I think that there's also a Bluetooth. I'm just looking at my phone here, trying to see if there's like any warnings about this. I obviously don't have the Ledger Live app, but I'm pretty sure that some apps, if you use Bluetooth connectivity to connect out to like I don't know, like another device, it does want your location if there's an app. You know what I want to check, but I don't have I have a Jade somewhere. I don't know where it is, but the Jade would be a similar requirement, I bet, because you have the green app and the piece of hardware. I wonder if it wants your location to use that connection. I don't know if it's for everything, but I know that there's some stuff going on there. Yeah, D in the chat. Bluetooth is a huge security hole. I agree. I mean, you shouldn't use Bluetooth for anything. If you're like at a public gym and you're using Bluetooth for your headphones, fine. But otherwise, it basically should always be off. And your Wi-Fi, if you're not at home, should always be off. Just don't expose yourself to this stuff. I feel like we're doing Access of Easy now instead of CBP. Don't turn this stuff on because it just gives you an opportunity to get got. Yeah, I don't know why you would do this. Ledger continues to impress in the ways that they manage to innovate data insecurity for their users. Just never ends with these guys. Like, what a fall from grace. Everyone I know had a Ledger.
I too had one.
Yeah, the hardware looks awesome. It works well. The UI is great, but they just keep fucking doing the wrong thing. Why? Have you ever seen a first mover like this fumble the ball so badly? There was no other wallet on the market. Oh, BlackBerry. Yeah, that was a bad one. That guy, in his defense, got distracted by trying to buy an NHL team. But, I've never seen something like this in the electronic space. I realize Bitcoin's a bit different. The bar is probably a little higher because people here are a little more well-informed. But, man, just everybody had one of those things. There was basically no other option for so long. And they just now are like pariahs, basically.
Let's talk about T-Mobile. T-Mobile. That's maybe the last story we could talk about here.
Sure.
So that's sure. You must have saw this news, right? From T-Mobile.
I sent it to SB. We'll be talking about this tomorrow too. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give a brief rundown, and SB could give a better overview of this because T-Mobile's parent company, Deutsche Telekom, either way, they said they've been running a Bitcoin node since 2023. And the first time I saw this, I was like, what the fuck is this all about? Why just run a node? And why this company? They also mentioned that they're running a Bitcoin Lightning nodes, actually it's plural, Bitcoin Lightning nodes. So are they going to start accepting Bitcoin as payment? Like, I don't know. But they also had another announcement, too, that they're going to also get into Bitcoin mining. They said they're going to engage in digital monetary photosynthesis soon. Very cryptic message.
Got to be a translation issue there.
Anyway, the stock price was impacted by this news?
Didn't move.
Nah, it was flat.
Yeah.
And so the question remains, why are they interested in Bitcoin mining? Do they have access to some cheap electricity that they can't already monetize? Or they need something to provide a load to an energy generation station? I don't know. Like, there's questions here I don't have answers to, but did some digging. I also found that Deutsche Telekom has been a validator for the Polygon network since 2023.
Really?
And also, at Deutsche Telekom up at the time, they said they will be supporting Polygon staking. And in later 2023, they also said they were running a validator for Ethereum. So T-Mobile also reported in September 2023 that they were involved with the launch of Helium Mobile. That is a 5G wireless service that allows users to earn rewards in crypto staking for sharing data. So there's lots here to digest, lots here to unpack. I don't know what the fuck to make of this. Shitcoiners turned Bitcoiners? I don't know, but Helium Mobile, Polygon, Ethereum, now Bitcoin, like it's like we're talking about DeFi technologies here or something, right? Just a smaller version that doesn't deal with telecom. But anyways, I'm not going to make a lot of this. Getting into the Bitcoin mining, that's somewhat interesting. I'm curious, like how and why they're going to do this. What's the rationale and what they plan to get out of this aside from just simply revenues. But yeah, it's just something notable at the very least.
I mean, doesn't this fly in the face a little bit of your thesis from earlier that anything Bitcoin related pumps the stock?
They didn't buy Bitcoin. They said they run a node and they're going to be doing Bitcoin mining. If Bitcoin mining was going to pump the stock, then all Bitcoin miners would be fucking massively overpriced.
I don't know. I'm curious to hear what SB thinks about this. I think the thing that he mentioned to me, I won't cannibalize the show too much, but in telecom, which is his wheelhouse, the expectation is that when you have free cash flows, you put them back into stuff like hardware, right, to help your network. And also in the States, although I'm not sure if it's like this in Europe, but in the States, when they have the band auctions, they expect you to have some cash flow available to buy, to improve your network vis-a-vis the band auctions every few years, right? So it's not really viewed by the telecom community. Is there a telecom community? There must be. SB is a part of it. I'll have to ask him this tomorrow if he's got like a badge or something. It's not really viewed as a good thing to be deploying cash flows into stuff like Bitcoin, but it's also not a good thing to be deploying them into Bitcoin miners. So I'm not surprised the stock didn't move. And you just talked about this, and I agree with you. Mining is not really great business. Again, we'll talk about this a bit more tomorrow. I don't think mining is really great business. So I don't know why they would choose this. And then the validator thing, that's a bit out of left field. I realize, you said they're doing validating for Polygon. Helium is a total flub. SP talked about that many times over the last few years with us. But this is like really bizarre news. It doesn't fit the business at all, and they're not doing the easy thing. Like you said, the buying Bitcoin, right? That's the thing that pumps the stock. Instead, they're doing the hard stuff that's really difficult to monetize, mining and Lightning nodes. I don't know.
See, doing
they got some old laptops or something. They're just firing up nodes for the hell of it. Is that it?
So with respect to a Bitcoin node, really, that's not going to be a game changer. Setting one up, right? An old laptop. There's very little overhead. There's very little over. So just right. It's, Lightning nodes require a little bit more because you have to open and close channels. So clearly, they have on-chain Bitcoin, which then they've moved to Lightning to open and close open channels for their Lightning nodes, plural. So they had to have bought Bitcoin, but how much? It must have been so small that it's not worth reporting.
Breaking news here on CBP. T-Mobile
just connecting dots.
Bitcoin. Yeah, they must. You're right. Yeah.
Right. Like, but they probably, they went to Bull, bought, $300 worth and open up a, I don't know, whatever you can get for 1 million sats.
I love it.
That's what you want to open the channel, at least 1 million sats. Anyways, Joey, that's it for the Bitcoin related stuff. I think
let's GTFO. Let's go to the other stuff. We got a lot of notable stories, I'm sure. Notable stories flowing yesterday at the table for Father's Day. Anyway, stay here. If you're on audio, wait till tomorrow. If you're on video, like I said, hang out. We'll be right back through the magic of video and audio editing tomorrow for you. Take care of yourself today.
Don't be a cock. Are you a fan of the old school NHL 94 game on the Genesis or SNES? Why not check out my show, the NHL 94 podcast? From tournaments and tactics to the people who make up this community. Check it out wherever you listen to podcasts or find it on YouTube.